Member and call the member for Spence.
Thank you, Acting Deputy Speaker. I rise today in this place to speak in support of my good friend and colleague's motion, the member for Bendigo. I would also like to acknowledge all speakers on this matter today and their substantial contributions to this discussion. Today I speak in relation to my experience in watching my wife deal with the realisation that she had been living with this invisible disease for some time, completely unaware of what was happening to her body. As many in this place would understand, there is our public life and there is our private life. Those who know me well know I hold my private life close. I would like to, from the outset, acknowledge the trust my wife has placed in me to tell our story today. 3.5 years ago, my wife Cassandra and I said, "I do," getting married, surrounded by our family and closest friends. Like many couples, we had a dream of having our own little family, and given we were both in our early 40s, we knew we had no time to waste in doing so. After months of failed conception, we started IVF treatment to assist in the process and hopefully realise our dream. For those that have experienced this, there is not much that isn't discussed, probed or tested to give you the best chance at becoming parents. This would be the time that we would first learn Cassandra had endometriosis. Unfortunately, without cover for private health insurance and long public hospital wait times for surgery, we reluctantly pushed ahead, hoping for the best in what would ultimately result in 2 unsuccessful rounds of IVF. When Cassandra finally was able to have surgery, we would learn that the endometriosis was quite severe and had caused organs to stick together. This was not a case of irritable bowel syndrome due to stress. The tearing sensation in her lower abdomen when she coughed was not in her head. It was a very real yet invisible disease. It was a chronic disease, endometriosis. Following surgery, there was a period of relief, mental and physical relief, from the symptoms she had been experiencing. Fast forward 12 months, with one last viable embryo, we undertook once again another round of IVF, albeit unsuccessful yet again. To our surprise, shortly following my election to this place, we would learn that we had naturally conceived, but our excitement would be short-lived. We experienced a miscarriage at approximately 9 weeks. This was not long after I gave my first speech. Thank you. The time following this was of great difficulty. Was the nausea, bloating and feeling of sickness in her head following the miscarriage, or was it something more sinister? We would soon discover endometriosis had been invisibly taking over yet again. Whilst waiting to see the specialist, I watched my wife try to push through the pain, try to push through the nausea and try to push through the fatigue. Often this ultimately meant taking time off work, because no amount of trying to push through it would make it go away. Exhausted from dealing with the pain, and after further tests, the specialist would recommend urgent surgery. This surgery occurred only a week and a half ago, as if determined by fate itself during Endometriosis Awareness Month. This time we had the talented robotic surgeon Dr Selva Paramasavam, and others on standby if anything was to go wrong. It resulted in the removal of the right ovary, which was completely covered in endometriosis and had a 5-centimetre endometrioma or chocolate cyst. The left ovary remains attached to the bowel due to the extremely high risk of extensive damage occurring if detachment had been attempted. My wife and I understand we are extremely fortunate to be in the position to have private health insurance and to be able to cover the further out-of-pocket expenses to have this surgery at the Flinders Private Hospital. Unfortunately for many, they simply cannot afford the same level of treatment we have received. My wife's journey with endometriosis is far from over, but we are hopeful. Our government has committed to $49.65 million for clinical management and care, $28.97 million for research and $8.57 million for awareness and education. 1 in 9 women, girls and those assigned female at birth are estimated to be affected by endometriosis. My wife's story is but one of the approximately 800,000 cases of those affected by the disease. And whilst our government's commitments are fantastic, there is still much more to be done. Thank you.
I thank the member and call the member for Hughes.
Flinders. According to Endometriosis Australia, there are 830,000 endometriosis patients in Australia. Almost 220,000 of these are in my home state of Victoria. According to the ABS, there are 87,646 women in Flinders, and so by deduction some 6,000 Flinders women suffer from endometriosis. For women who do not suffer from it, little is known about it, and for those who do, it is both life-changing and life-dominating, starting early in life and enduring throughout most of it. The Coalition has a proud history in delivering record funding to improve the diagnosis, care and treatment of more than 800,000 women with endometriosis today during our time in government. The former government was the first government to acknowledge and recognise endometriosis and the impacts it has on women across our country, much of which was indeed spearheaded by my predecessor, Greg Hunt, led by his excellent policy advisor, Ms Bryony Hutton at the time. Bryony has since then been a constant advocate for women suffering endometriosis, no more so than in Hastings within the Flinders electorate, which she sought to represent at the last Victorian election, losing by only a few hundred votes. I had the opportunity to reach out to Bryony over the weekend and to talk to her about endometriosis. In turn, she reached out to a close friend of hers who has suffered from it for some time and who gave me permission to read out her story, and so I will. The story is that of Bethany Toporsizek from my electorate in Flinders, and I'm able to share her story of endometriosis today. Bethany grew up with her family in Somerville, attended school in Tyab, and at age 26, after exploring every corner of the peninsula, travelled through Europe and now works as an artisan baker at Flinders Sourdough. At the age of 20, Bethany had her first laparoscopic surgery to determine the cause of chronic and severe pain she had been experiencing for several years in her pelvis, lower back and upper thigh, along with painful digestive complications. When she thought she was suffering from irritable bowel syndrome, she was, to her surprise, diagnosed with endometriosis. Bethany's eventual surgical diagnosis finally made sense of her symptoms and equipped her with the knowledge to seek help. She still suffers from symptoms of endo, but has become passionately diligent about her diet and exercise as a way of managing her chronic illness. The average endo diagnosis takes anywhere between 7 and 10 years. Bethany hopes that by sharing her story, she can encourage other young women experiencing unusual period and digestive symptoms to not accept this as normal and to seek professional help. More than $332 million was budgeted in the 2022-23 budget to strengthen health services and make more support available to women and girls through a range of new initiatives, including a focus on endometriosis. As part of this investment, the former government committed $58 million to the largest funding for endometriosis on record, in fact, to support women experiencing endo and to improve their quality of life, building on the National Action Plan for Endo to ensure women are diagnosed and supported in the best way possible. It is quite remarkable that a disease that affects so many Australian women was so misunderstood and was shrouded in ignorance. This month, Endometriosis Awareness Month, held in March each year, raises important awareness of this painful and debilitating condition. Incredible organisations like Endometriosis Australia play a vital role in supporting patients throughout their endo journey, from diagnosis to treatment and beyond. They are also a wealth of information and provides connections to various support groups around the country. The 2018 National Action Plan describes endometriosis as a chronic disease that occurs when cells similar to those that line a woman's uterus grow in other parts of her body, usually around the pelvis and less commonly in tissues and organs outside it. It is a highly individualised disease, with the symptoms and impact of the disease ranging significantly from person to person. The Coalition remains profoundly committed to helping to improve the quality of life for an extraordinary number of Australian women and girls living with endo.
Thank the member for Flinders, and call the member for Hughes.